Hello, and welcome to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efraín Martinez. I am a principal in search of wisdom, and I have found productivity to be a great tool for success. Today, I have the great and distinguished honor of having Dr. Brandi Kelly, who is the Superintendent of Mount Olive Community Unit School District Number 5 in Illinois, and the host of the Lead with Hope podcast. Dr. Brandi Kelly, who are you?
All right. Well, thank you first and foremost for having me on the show today. I'm excited about our conversation. To start off, I will share with everybody my story a little bit. Right now, I'm a superintendent and I'm a principal, but over 20 years ago, I started my career as a school social worker. And that was because of an experience I went through in high school. When I was 15, my brother Brandon drowned. And long story short, our school community inspired me to go into education because of the outpouring of love that we received during that difficult time. And so my intent was to give back to schools, to school districts, to educators. And for the past 20 years, I've been striving to do that.
Wow, powerful. You went to college knowing that you wanted to be a social worker.
I started out thinking I wanted to be a nurse, but adversity has really shaped my life. When I was in college, my mom was diagnosed with a terminal cancer diagnosis, and I took care of her for a short period of time in her last month of life. And it was during that time that I decided, you know, I think nursing would be a great career path for me, but I really want to focus more on the psychology of things. So I started falling in love with psychology, social work, that kind of thing, because of my mom's mindset when she received that terminal diagnosis. And I saw how quickly that she went from full of hope to hopeless. And so I decided to get a degree in psychology, and then that led me into social work, which then created the trajectory of my life that has now unfolded. And I was a school social worker for 10 years in the Effingham School District, and that's where I got my start.
Beautiful. So walk us through that professional trajectory. So you become a social worker. What is your fondest memory as a social worker?
So in 2001, I became a school social worker, like I said, in Effingham School District. And I would say that my fondest memory of that time are the people that I worked with, from the educators in that district. Mrs. Owen was one of the administrators at that time. She was an assistant superintendent. And I don't know if she knows this or not, but she inspired me. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at that point in time. And she inspired me to go into administration. There were a ton of people, the school psychologist, Lisa Norton, school social workers that I worked with, counselors, teachers. They were just so giving and I think about Kim Varner. She was a school social worker and she was my first mentor. And the hours that she put in to her job, to the lives that she affected, she started a mentoring program at Central Grade School in Effingham. And she has really left a legacy that they are still utilizing that program to change lives. She's helped kids go to college. She's helped families tap into resources that has truly changed so many lives. And it's amazing the impact of one educator in the lives of so many. So inspiring, and part of why I am doing what I'm doing today.
Beautiful. And tell us a little bit more about that, about how come a social worker gets influence to become a school administrator.
Yeah. So when I was at Effingham, and like I said, Mrs. Owen, she saw something in me and she offered me a job as a special ed administrator. And at that time, my kids were in sports and activities, and it was a busy time in life. So I declined that position, but it kind of fostered that desire in me to have a bigger impact on teachers, educators, families, students. And I saw school administration as a pathway to change more lives, to have that impact. And I think we can all reflect back and think of those administrators, those leaders who were both good and bad. And I'll be honest, I had both. I had both examples. And I was fortunate that the people in my life inspired me in such a way that my first job as principal was in my hometown, the town that supported me when my brother Brandon drowned. The school that I graduated from, that my husband graduated from, that my kids both graduated from. And so I became the principal there, and I loved every minute of it. But then another door opened. I often say that God, makes plans that he, I guess the saying is, God laughs when we make plans because his plan is the perfect plan, right? So he took us to Mount Zion for 6 years. We lived in Mount Zion, and I was an administrator at a pre-K 1 building. I say that that is probably the hardest I've ever worked. Having almost 400 kids under the age of 7 is very rewarding, but also very exhausting. Um, and then, now I'm a superintendent in Mount Olive School District, and I've only been doing this for 2 years, but just to see the possibilities out there to really change lives, to have an impact on students, to focus on student learning and SEL and mental health, fostering that love of learning for our kids is so powerful. And I'm blessed to be able to do that every day. And I can help my educators tap into the resources that they need in order for their impact to be larger as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. For
Mhm.
aspiring superintendents like me, what advice do you have for those who transition from being a school administrator to being a superintendent of a district?
Yeah. My advice to you would be to be present in where you are right now. I'm a type 3, the Enneagram type 3. I'm a striver, I'm an achiever. And I feel like as I reflect back on my life, I spent a lot of time focusing on the future. And I missed out on a lot of the positives, the blessings, the celebrations that were in the present moment. And if you can be present and you can invest in the people that you have right in front of you, your impact is going to be so much more powerful. Now, that's not to say that you don't plan. And I would encourage you to tap into your local, like here we have the Illinois Association of School Administrators, and they do an Aspiring Superintendent Academy. That is a powerful opportunity for people to get together and to start planning for your future. But in your day to day job, be present. Invest in the people that are right there in front of you and enjoy the moments, both big and small, with the people that you're serving at this present time.
Beautiful. Very wise. Thank you so much for sharing that.
No, you're welcome.
So, Brandy, like in Back to the Future, if you could
Mm-hmm.
go back in time to any of the positions you have held in the past, what will the Brandy of today tell the Brandy of back then?
Oh, that's a great question. And it really just taps into that self-reflection piece and that self-awareness piece that I'm so passionate about. But if I could go back in time, I would tell Brandy, I would tell myself, don't spend so much time sweating the small things. I spent so much time, like I said, striving, trying to focus on the next thing, often overthinking a conversation, an interaction. And that's really just a waste of time because there's so many things that are outside of my circle of control that I would have been much better served if I would have just focused on what was inside of my circle of control. So I would tell myself to just let it go and focus on what's in your circle of control and be the best version of you that you can be today.
Beautiful. Bingo. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mhm.
So let's talk about books. As you know, reading books is a door to enter new worlds. If you
Mhm.
have to gift two books for a loved one fiction and one nonfiction, which books will those be?
Ooh, I love books. I love to read. But I've reflected on this question since you sent me the questions via email, and this is a hard one for me because there's just so many. I have boxes of books, and my husband tells me, let's get rid of some of these books, and I just can't let them go. I love, love, love my books. But if I had to narrow it down, I would say that the fiction would be Where the Crawdads Sing. Delia Owens wrote that book, and it's a movie also.
Mhm.
And I I think I like that book because I often find myself rooting for the underdog. And in
Mhm.
that book, um, she was a lost child. She was all alone. She just overcame so much adversity that it spoke to me, and I really love that book. And I like the movie too, but I always say the book's better. The other one that I would say, recently I found a Bible that John Maxwell has annotated, I guess, and
Mhm.
with his leadership principles. Um, and when you read the Bible, there are so many powerful principles on leadership. It really can speak to the principles and the practices that we should implement as leaders. And John Maxwell's leadership principles, the 21 laws, irrefutable laws of leadership, things like that, he embeds that in there in such a way that it's timeless principles. It's things that, no matter what your religious background, you
Mhm.
can draw some correlations to your leadership journey and utilize those timeless principles to help yourself in personal and professional growth.
Beautiful. There's so many uh great items of wisdom in the Bible for believers or non-believers.
Yeah.
I think is I was trying to look in my notes, but I cannot find it. It's something about, I think it's in Deuteronomy, about in your teaching, let your speech be awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that is often a part that is missing. That sometimes we have
Mhm.
conversations with people and we're
Yeah.
just saying things and we don't get to think about the greater impact that we can have um, as we communicate, to move minds, young minds of students, or the
Mhm.
the, the teachers and staff that we are supporting in the school. Every opportunity is an opportunity to do good, but we have to really think about
Yeah.
it in order to develop that. So I love that. So I'm gonna check that out. It's an
Mhm.
annotated Bible by John Maxwell. You said,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
Let's continue with your biggest influences. So either one or many, as many
Yeah.
as you want to say. Who formed Brandi Kelly?
Yeah. So, I've got to credit my mom and dad, of course, but whenever I think back to my mom, she died in 1999. She was 44 years of age. So she was very young when she died. And I think back to my high school years, mothers and daughters, they butt heads, especially in high school. I know we did. But my mom was such a strong woman, and she always fought for the underdog. If there was something that she could do, she was willing to roll up her sleeves and to serve. And she was an inspiration to me. We didn't always agree on everything, but she was the strongest woman that I think I've ever known. Just surviving the death of a child, and then later that terminal diagnosis, and seeing what that did to her mindset. But she fought. She fought. And she was an inspiration to me, and I'm forever thankful for her influence in my life. There's a lot of strong women, though, in my life. I think about my aunts. I have 3 aunts that after my mom died, they have been so instrumental in shaping who I am. I think about my Aunt Sharon, who I spent summers with whenever I was a kid in Iowa. She's an amazing woman. Right now, she's going through the diagnosis of cancer. She's been diagnosed, and she's struggling with that and fighting through that, but loving her family every step of the way and enjoying every moment with her family. My Aunt Patty, who has recently moved to Texas, and I miss her dearly, but we do stay in contact. And then my Aunt Vicky, who still lives here in Illinois. Those 3 women, when my mom passed away, they were there for me. They were there for me no matter what I needed. I could pick up the phone and I could go to them, and I'm thankful for each one of them. And then finally, I was talking about the Illinois Association of School Administrators. We have a cohort called Elevate, and it is a group of superintendents, female superintendents, strong, fierce females. And each one of them brings so much wisdom to my life that I'm thankful that I was connected to that group. And I have each of those women in my network forever. So a lot of strong females in my life that I'm thankful for. And they have had a huge impact in shaping who I am today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask, I see you a lot with your daughter
Yeah.
in your podcast
Mm-hmm.
ventures.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, can you tell me, or can you tell us a little bit about that influence?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a great one. Thank you for bringing that up. So Morgan is my firstborn. She's my daughter. Um, she is my best friend right now. She really is. Um, Gosh, it causes me to tear up a little bit when I think about Morgan, because again, I talk about that angst between mothers and daughters, and we butted heads too. We're 2 very strong-minded females. And just recently, Morgan and I have started a Cup of Hope. So it's a Monday video. It's an inspirational video where we share just 2 to 5 minutes of inspiration to help people start their Mondays. And Morgan's a new mom. She's got a 1.5-year-old. But again, I think about the adversity that she's went through as a young mother and how she handled that. Her son, at the age of 4 months, had some health issues. And to make a long story short, he ended up having to have a surgery where they put a shunt in his head to drain the fluid. And watching her go through that and continue to be faithful, continue to be strong despite that adversity and that hardship is truly inspirational. And I hope that Morgan and I can continue to build this business and work together more and more all the time, because it's my family that I love so much. And I think as leaders, we have to lead out of our values. And for me, my values are faith first, and then family and education. And it has been a joy doing a Cup of Hope with Morgan every single week. And I look forward to building on that in the future.
Beautiful. As I listen to your story, hope is a big part of it,
Mm-hmm.
beginning with the tragedy of your sibling.
Yeah.
What role does faith plays in your life, especially as a leader?
Faith is everything to me. And it goes back to my earliest memory of adversity with Brandon drowning. My mom talked about Romans 8:28 during that time, and it's really embedded in my brain forevermore. Romans 8:28 says, "All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called in accordance to his purpose." And for me, that's what my role is as a superintendent. It's not a job, it's not a career, it's a calling. And God has a perfect plan. Another scripture that I love is Jeremiah 29:11. His plans for us are good. It's to give us hope and a future. He wants to prosper us. And so, with all of the perfect plans that God has provided for me, He has gifted me with this calling. And I think that when things get hard, and they do, leadership is hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? So when things get hard, my faith is what keeps me going. Just reflecting on the times in my life where I've mastered those difficulties. But it's always been through my relationship with God. I feel that I've been able to do that.
Did you ever had doubts in the face of so much tragedy involving your sibling, your mom?
Mhm. Yeah. Doubts come and they go, I was talking to somebody yesterday about the fact that in the United States, anxiety and depression is so prevalent. About 1 in 3 people deal with anxiety and depression, and I'm no exception. I have dealt with anxiety and depression over the years. But the the source of my faith and my hope is first and foremost God. And it is my faith. And it is surrounding myself with like-minded individuals who not only support me, but also hold me accountable and help me to stay on the right path. In addition to that, I think we also have to remind people that it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes that help may be in the form of medication, sometimes that help may be in the form of counseling, but it is a journey and it is a process, not an event. And each one of these bumps, it's what we climb on. It's what makes us better. It's what helps us to be the person that we were destined to be in life. And so, even though I would love to have my mom and my brother back here with me today, I'm thankful for the experiences that God has gifted me with, because I do truly believe that my story and the lessons that I have learned can be paid forward to help other people along their journey as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brandi. And my last question in terms of product of wisdom, um, how do you address imposter syndrome?
Mm. We all deal with imposter syndrome at some time. And, when I started out, imposter syndrome can really cripple you. And as I said before, I was a school social worker. I was never a classroom teacher in the traditional sense of classroom teacher. I taught, I'm a teacher. But some people, because my start was in school social work, they didn't see me as an instructional leader. And so I had to prove myself. And as a type 3, the Enneagram type 3, I'm a worker. And so I equipped myself. I have strong interpersonal relationships. I feel like I have an ability to form relationships that really help me to overcome imposter syndrome. Intrapersonal awareness, knowing myself, self-reflecting, self-awareness, that has helped me as well, because you've got to see your blind spots. You've got to understand how the things that you're going through, the things that are triggering that imposter syndrome, how they're going to affect you as a leader. And so through that self-reflection, I have been able to overcome some of that. And then finally, you've got to have the knowledge base. So because I was not specifically in the classroom, I spent a lot of time working with teachers, observing teachers, and utilizing that knowledge to overcome imposter syndrome and to be an effective leader. And that's something that I believe very strongly, that in leadership, you don't have to have all the answers, but you do have to surround yourself with a team that will be able to come up with the answers and create that cohesive, healthy culture and climate so that our kids can strive. And keeping that focus on our kids, keeping that focus on student learning is essential.
Beautiful. Very profound. Thank you so much. Let's
Mhm.
take a quick moment to praise the Teach Better community.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
So, as you know, being successful includes being on top of our productivity, but this means many different things for many different people. How do you get organized in order to be successful at work and still have a fructiferous life?
Yeah, that is a big question, but let's unpack it a little bit. So I think that over the years, the way that I've stayed productive is through my system of self-efficacy. And it has evolved over time, and I'm sure it's still going to continue to evolve. But my system of self-reflection, or I'm sorry, my system of self-efficacy involves that acronym of HOPE, leading with hope. H is for habits, O is for optimistic outlook, P is for passion, purpose, and perseverance, and E is for excellence. And this system requires an intentional practice of self reflection and self awareness. And that's what builds our self efficacy. And I believe that through that self efficacy, we we practice that, we build on that, and then that system of self-efficacy helps us to build a more hopeful, better future for our educators and our students.
Wow. So I never realized that HOPE was also an acronym. So
Yeah.
habits.
Yes.
Um, I missed the
Opt-
P. The
like
optimism,
optimistic outlook. P is
perseverance.
passion, purpose, and perseverance.
Wow,
And E is excellence.
beautiful.
Jimmy
That
Casas
is
says,
so
yes,
neat.
Jimmy Casas says, live your excellence. And that is something that I strive to do every day. And, again, going back to that self efficacy, Albert Bandura talks about the four sources. And in the four sources, it's mastery experiences. That's one of the things, vicarious experiences, affective states. I mean, all of those things influence our level of self efficacy. And you've probably seen where John Hattie has said that collective teacher efficacy has a huge impact on improving student outcomes. And so that's the goal. It's going from self efficacy to collective teacher efficacy to improved student outcomes. And our students are our hope and our future.
Beautiful. So let's get geeky into the details.
Uh-huh.
In terms of email, calendar, and your to-do list, like what do you do? What system, what programs do you do? Pen and paper? Do you digitize it? What should we learn from you?
Yeah. So technology is wonderful, but also so overwhelming. And we can utilize technology to help us be more efficient, but just like anything else, I think we have to have balance in our life. So for me, my productivity comes through Google Calendar. I use Google Calendar. That's how I stay organized. I put things on my calendar that needs to be done, meetings that I need to have, all of the balls that I have going, that are in the air right now. I've got that scheduled and I have a plan. I'm a planner. and sometimes too much so, but I have to have a plan and a backup plan. But my Google Calendar is what keeps me organized. But, I also think, as I said, with balance, sometimes we do have to take a break from technology too. And before the show, you and I were talking a little bit about spring break. And, over spring break, I plan to do a technology fast, just unplugging. They say that everything, when you unplug it and you plug it back in, it works a little better. That's what I'm going to do over spring break. I feel like a technology fast is much needed. And sometimes we get foggy. We have so many things going on, making so many decisions and information coming at us constantly. Just unplugging for a while is necessary. And I think that keeps you productive.
Beautiful. Thank you. So when you're in a meeting and you think of something, oh, I have an idea, or I need to do this. Do you write it down in a notebook? Do you put that in your calendar? Do you just keep it in your mind? What happens through your life?
Yeah. I mean, we're a Google school, so I use Google for a lot of things. But when I have meetings, if I am the one leading the meeting, I have usually a running agenda. So, for instance, our admin meetings, we have them once a week, and I have a running agenda for the entire year. So we can go back and we can cross-reference what we've done, what we need to do. In order to know where you're going, you've got to see where you've been. And for me, that helps me to stay focused, intentional, and productive. But I do have the old school method too. I have a notebook, and there are things in my notebook when I do phone calls or meetings. Sometimes I will just write that in my notebook. So I use two sources. I use the Google Documents for my agendas and my minutes. And then I also utilize just a plain old notebook, old school.
I like that. Yeah, my boss is like that. She has these Google Docs, and it's amazing because in the moment you're like, oh, can you just have a conversation? But then you realize, oh, what did we talk about? And we can go back, and we are so grateful that we capture our ideas. Beautiful. Thank you. So we talked about the calendar. Let's talk about when you had to write letters to your community. Larger districts have someone that does the communication, so that is facilitated for them. I don't know if you have someone for communication, but at least as you know, school principals, we don't have a communications person, so you have to, the whole day you are running around, and then you have to sit and write something that is compelling and making people feel compelled to do something. What do you do? Do you, I don't know, have heard different things. What is your practice with this?
Yeah, I enjoy writing. But again, as you said, there's so many distractions in the life of a school leader that sometimes it can be hard to get focused to write that compelling message. Something that's been a game changer for me this year is AI. So whenever I sit down now and I'm writing a letter, a professional email, a letter to family, something like that, because we're a small district, I wear many hats. Right now I'm interim principal, I'm communication director, I'm human resources, I'm transportation director. So I sit down and I go to Magic School AI and I select the template and I put in there what I want as far as a prompt, and then it generates a letter. And then I go through that letter and I edit that letter in order to speak to my community the way that I want to speak with my voice. But Magic School AI has been a tool that I've used this year that has saved hours for me. And it's a great resource. Not something that you want to just plug stuff in and then push send, but I do think it can generate some ideas and help you to be much more productive and directed in your communication. Because as you know, communication has to be consumed in order for it to be effective. And so sitting down and writing out that email, that letter, whatever it may be, AI is a game changer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So as I was doing research on Brandi Kelly, I
Mhm.
see about your book
Yeah.
with the Road to Awesome series.
Mhm.
Can you tell us about what is your book about
Yeah.
and this journey about writing a book?
Yeah. So my book is Lead with Hope, a system of self-efficacy. So a little bit of what we've talked about today in terms of that system of self-efficacy, that acronym of HOPE is what my book's all about. So it starts out and it shares with my readers my story in greater depth, where I started with, that 15-year-old high school sophomore dealing with the loss of a sibling. And then it goes through and it explains how I use habits, optimistic outlook, passion, purpose, perseverance, and excellence in my life as a leader to inspire other people, to be effective, to be productive. And in addition to that, it starts each chapter out with self reflection, and then it ends each chapter with self awareness, because I believe that both of those ingredients are necessary for school leaders. We cannot lead others well if we don't lead ourselves well. So we have to consistently self reflect, improve our self awareness, and build our self efficacy. And that's what the book's all about.
Beautiful. Oof. Yeah, that sounds exhilarating. So, in terms of the productivity, because people like me dream of writing a book,
Yeah.
but we sit down and we're like, oh my goodness, I know that my doctoral dissertation took me forever because I had all these grandiose ideas, but putting them in a sequential way that connects and at the end make this lesson that you want to teach
Yeah.
is a different story. What lessons did you learn getting your book organized, and what advice do you have for those who are aspiring authors?
Yeah. I told you before that I'm a planner, but that is not how my book came to fruition. I kind of fell into it. And it was because of Teach Better Network. So during the pandemic, the Teach Better Network was something that somebody along the way shared with me. And I got plugged into the administrators mastermind that they have on a weekly basis. And Livia Chang,
Jen.
she
Mhm.
Chen, yeah, she encouraged me to start blogging. So I started with the Lead with Hope series in the Teach Better blog. And it was through that process that I just started building chapters. And before I knew it, I had the meat of my book. And then I met Darren Peppard, and he's the Road to Awesome publisher. And he and I talked one day, and we decided that I'd sign a contract with him and that I'd publish my book through Road to Awesome. So the Teach Better Network has been very instrumental in my journey towards becoming an author. And it's really just starting with the blogging and then building the chapters and refining it. And I'm looking forward to my book will soon be in the editing phase and then should be published by December of 2024. So it's been a process, but it's been a fun process.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. So then you're a podcaster. Like,
Yeah.
tell us about that origin story and what lessons have you learned in order to ensure that you can record and publish your episodes.
Mhm. So with the podcast, I was at the superintendent's conference just last year, last September, and I was in Starbucks and I ran into Adam Welcome. And I'm not shy. So I went up to him and I said, "Hi, Adam. My name's Brandi Kelly. I just want to introduce myself." And we struck up a conversation. And Adam and I continued that conversation after the conference was over. And my plan was to start a podcast. But because I'm a planner, I wanted to have about 10 episodes in the queue before I released it. And Adam said to me, "What are you waiting for? Get it out into the world. Start now. And you can just go, one step at a time." And I thought, he's right. So I recorded my first episode, my second episode, my third episode. And then, like I said, I had that interaction with him and I just started releasing it. And when you start, it's not perfect. But my motto these days is progress over perfection. And so start where you are and just build from there, because we all have stories to share. And you never know whose story is going to resonate with somebody, whose story is going to be that catalyst for life change. And so that's where it started, and I continue. My podcast is a bi-weekly podcast, and the stories that I've heard so far have been so inspiring and powerful. It's probably the funnest part of my week.
Beautiful. So, Brandi, we have something in common because
Mhm.
I was in a group of NAACP administrators, and Adam Welcome was the host, and the question is, what you guys want to talk about? And I'm such a nerd. I'm the first person who talks. This was during the pandemic,
Yeah.
so we are all in little squares. And I said, I am thinking of doing a show of this and this and this and that. And he
Mhm.
said, do it.
Yeah.
And just like that, I felt like I was giving myself permission
Mhm.
to do so. So yeah, Adam Welcome has been truly he's always going to be imprinted in my life story,
Yeah.
because he, in a way, he told me, just do it. Stop thinking
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
And think about all the people he's impacted by just giving us permission. It's very interesting that we need that sometimes, but having people like Adam Welcome in the world is so powerful and inspiring, and I'm thankful for his friendship.
Beautiful. So, Brandi, my last question is: after you take off the hat
Mhm.
of superintendent, the hat of writer, blogger, what do you do for fun?
Hmm. It goes back to my family. The thing that I look forward to every single week is going to church with my family. Both of my kids and their spouses go to the same church we do. And of course, I get to see both of my grandsons. I have had two grandsons. One is just over one, and the other one is 6 months older. So um, let's see. One was born in July, one was born in January. So they're just 6 months apart, and they're so much fun. Oh, they just bring me so much joy. And so I enjoy spending time with my family first and foremost. In addition to that, I love to read. I enjoy just having a cup of coffee and reading a book. I enjoy going on walks with my husband. I guess I have two best friends because my husband is also my best friend. We were high school sweethearts, and we are in a different phase of life now. We're empty nesters, and I did not love it at first. He has loved it from the start, but I enjoy our relationships, and we've really kind of grown up together because, like I said, we were high school sweethearts, and we've been married for over 30 years. Believe it or not, it's unreal, but time just goes by so quickly. I enjoy talking to my family, spending time with my family over spring break. We're going to go visit my aunt in Iowa, that is so inspirational to me. And so the the biggest thing that I enjoy is just spending time with family and investing in those relationships with family and friends. We're getting ready to, myself and my high school friends, we're getting ready to experience a big birthday. And I'll let you guess which one that is because I don't like the number, but it beats the alternative, right? But we're planning a celebration, and our lives are so busy that we don't frequently get together, but we're all going to go on a trip. And so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a fun thing to do. I love to travel. I love to go to the beach. And like I said, read a book. The beach, the ocean, a book. Those are fabulous ingredients for a wonderful day.
Beautiful. Brandi, it has been such a pleasure and honor to have you in the show. Thank you for taking the time to share with us about your wisdom and your productivity.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
I forgot to play the outro. 1, 2.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efraín Martinez.
Chulo.
And I love that production. Chill out.